We're looking today at the story of Abraham and Sarah. And here's the big thing I want you to get out of this, is that no matter how great a person or a couple might be, there's no such thing as a perfect marriage. And I want to talk to you about that today. In Genesis chapter 12, we see this snapshot of Abraham and Sarah. Now, there's no person that's ever lived that's been more universally admired and respected than Abraham. But when we look at their marriage, Abraham and Sarah, there were times where Abraham was not a very good husband. In fact, there were times where Abraham makes these epic blunders where you're like, how in the world can anybody who at times is so great like this be such a bad husband in moments like this? And so basically, Abram says, hey, we're going to go into this place. They're going to see you're pretty. They're going to want to take you as Pharaoh's wife. That they're going to kill me. So let's just say that you're my sister and I'll just give them to you. And so there's no such thing as a perfect marriage. No one's marriage is perfect. But here's what I want you to understand. The way that you respond to your imperfect marriage will define it. The way that you respond to your imperfect marriage will define your marriage. And so I want to give you a few principles about this. Here's the first one. Deal with, but don't dwell on, all the past pain. Deal with, but don't dwell on all the past pain. Don't try to meet God-given needs and desires outside of God's plan. Go over to Genesis 16. Let me show this to you. Now, Sarai, Abraham's wife, had borne him no children. She had a female Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. Let me just take it a little aside here for you. I think this is a great principle here. That if you do not deal with completely the wounds and the pain from your early marriage mistakes, if you don't fully cut that off and deal with it, it will rise up later and get you. And Sarai said to Abram, may the wrong done to me be on you. Here's what she's saying. She's saying, hey, I know it was my idea for you to do this, but you shouldn't have listened to me. And so what happens is we take this natural, God-given, God-created desire and then seek to meet it in a way that's outside of God's plan. And then in doing so, we bring a whole bunch of pain into our life. And that's what is happening here. They have a desire that's good, but they seek to meet it in a way that's not God's plan. Here's the third thing. If I'm gonna respond well to my imperfect marriage, I need to focus more on my own flaws and less on my spouse's. You know, a lot of us would do well to focus on what are the roots of my own brokenness. Until I invite God to deal with these things in me, it's going to keep coming up. And so we would do well to focus more on our own flaws, deal with our own brokenness. Maybe that looks like just you and Jesus and just some confession, repentance, and prayer. Don't allow the imperfections in your marriage to cause you to miss the beauty. There's obviously these moments in Abraham and Sarah's marriage that were just off the charts terrible, yet we see that they did seem to love each other until the end. What are the beautiful things? What are the great moments, the moments where you really loved each other well? And similar to that is this. Look for God's amazing faithfulness in the midst of the mess. What's amazing to me about the story of Abraham is after every one of Abraham's idiot moves, the next thing we see is God reaffirming his promise to him. I think that when God looks at our imperfect marriages, two people, both flawed and both sinful, doing their best to love one another well, but all along the way, getting it wrong sometimes and hurting each other sometimes, that God looks through the lens of his grace and faithfulness, and he sees the beautiful things. He sees how he's working in the midst of it all. Remember that almost every time, unless you are in a dangerous situation, the marriage that you are in is your best shot at a good marriage. Almost every time, the marriage that you are in is your best shot to have a good marriage. One day, there will be a perfect bride and a perfect groom. And it's not going to be you and your husband. Go over to Ephesians chapter 5. Let me show this to you. What Paul's saying is he's saying, hey, listen, man, the idea is that your marriage is going to be a shadow. It's going to be a picture. It's going to be a representation. Now, it's not going to be a perfect one, but it can still be a pretty good one. This picture, this representation of God's amazing love for us, his selfless love and Christ dying for us, and that it becomes this picture of that while we'll never have a perfect marriage, there's still a whole lot of beauty there. There's still God's still so faithful in the midst of the mess, and that it can still be a beautiful representation and picture of the one day this perfect groom being Jesus and this perfect bride being his church.